Hi, I'm Adrian, and welcome to this week's video about Schubert's Impromptu No.2 Opus 90 with a slightly different opening. As you can see, I'm here in the woods by a river, and it's actually St. Patrick's Day, although I won't get to upload this video for another few days. So why am I here in this location and not at the piano? Well, I'm here for two reasons, really. Schubert felt very connected to nature and inspired by nature. Every day after spending the morning composing, he would take long walks in the Vienna woods. This was a habit that Brahms was also known for, which he recommended to his students. And in this impromptu, the presence of water is unmistakable, with its continuous flow of triplet quavers, at least in the first section. So I wanted to make that connection more palpable and not overlook it. And the second reason is that I needed to step back from the piano, gather my thoughts, reconsider some things, and get some perspective, and most importantly, slow down. I've been trying to race to the end of this piece, and coincidentally, like the coda of the impromptu itself, which is one big accelerando as it rushes to a turbulent finish. And this is not a good way of working. Although I can play this piece moderately well at this stage, there are actually deeper and rudimentary problems that need to be addressed, and they need time and slow practice. So even after all of these years playing piano, I still don't feel comfortable or secure in certain aspects of technique, and this affects my overall confidence when playing. So that's what I'm going to look at today. So I'm back from my walk in the wilderness and back at the piano here. And as I was saying earlier, this particular video is about technique and the technical problems I have. So, and in general for my channel, if you're expecting like a dazzling performance, that's not what this is about. It's a behind the scenes and a very ordinary, realistic and unremarkable kind of practice vlog. So just before I begin, it's worth mentioning something about Schubert. I'm sure you already know that he died very young at the age of 31, and he was chronically ill for 5 years up to that point. And I think this is worth bearing in mind, or it's actually very important to bear it in mind when you're playing his music, and to kind of think about the music and play the music from this perspective, you know, the perspective of a dying man, and not just dying, actually suffering man, I think is more important. And even in this piece with the lovely opening, in the B section, it becomes very serious. And in the coda, as I mentioned before when I was outside, there's an accelerando at the end, which is quite unusual, you know, for the music to speed up and race to the finish. And I'll get into that in part 2 of this video, because I have some kind of theories around it. I really like what Andras Schiff says, or the analogy that he makes between, or his Christian analogy between Bach, Mozart, and Schubert. He says that if Bach is the Father, then Mozart is the Son, and Schubert is the Holy Spirit. And this is telling because Schubert's music has a very deeply spiritual aspect to it. So this Impromptu No.2 Opus 90 is one of 4 in the Opus 90 set. And I'd love to learn all 4 of them, and I've played through them at some point or another. So I want to make it my mission this year to learn all 4 of them as a set, because they're all beautiful, not just this one. So I'm not going to talk too much about the compositional aspect of this piece. I really want to focus on technique, but just to say it is pretty straightforward, actually. The form, it's A, B, A. Today I'm going to look at the A section, and that goes like this. Then we move into a very dramatic and stormy B section. Then there's the A section comes back, and it's an exact repeat of the first rendition. And then finally we have the coda, which draws its material from the B section. And as I said, it races to the very end. There's a speeding up to the very end of the piece. The other interesting thing, just to note, there's so many interesting things about this piece, but there was a convention in early music, like Baroque music, for instance, something called the Picardy third, where a piece would start in a minor key, but would end with a major chord or in a major key. So ending with a kind of an uplifting or on a positive note, let's say. With Schubert's Impromptu No.2, he reverses this process. So it starts very lightly in a lovely E-flat major key, and then ends in a very dramatic and very serious E-flat minor key. Rhythm in this piece is, certainly in the A section anyway, is very straightforward. It's just continuous triplet quavers all the way from beginning to the start of the B section. I don't think that it should be played very fast. Quite often you hear performers playing it at lightning speed, almost like it's a study. And I think this destroys the character of the music. Schubert wasn't, it's not a showy piece, and Schubert wasn't, he wasn't a show-off, you know. I think he was more of a poet than a pianist. My final speed will be just allegro, a simple allegro. And but here in this video, as I go through the technical aspects, I'm going to play it at a slower speed because I really want to concentrate on all of the notes and all of the different things that are going on in the music, the phrasing, articulation, fingering, and so on. So I mentioned about the rhythm, which is all just continuous quavers. And that might lead us to think that all of the notes should be played evenly. But obviously that's not the case, because there's a lot of twists and turns and different phrasing within that continuous line of notes. However, in the practice of the piece, I think for me anyway, it's a good idea when I'm playing through it slowly, at least to start with by playing it evenly, and playing each note to the bottom of the key and feeling good stability in my hands. And really that's kind of what why I got irritated with this piece, because I had learned it to some extent. I was able to play it, but I didn't feel 100% comfortable with certain areas, and they felt a bit insecure. So ultimately, actually, when I came back from my walk, I actually started to change some fingering. The phrasing, will determine the different types of touch. There's also different articulation in the piece, like there's some heavy accents in various places. So yeah, I'm just going to start from the beginning. So that's the opening. So it's very light, a very light touch, but when I'm playing through it, I'm playing into each note just to begin with, just to really feel the bottom of the keys, to feel that my hand is steady and secure. And the opening here is really, really nice. I mean, I know I said I wouldn't speak much about harmony, but it's so simple in the left hand, which really is the kind of the skeleton for the harmony, just going very simply. So we just have E flat major at the beginning, then to chord 5, back to chord 1, and then to 5 again in second inversion, back to chord 1, and then 4, and then 5, and then back to chord 1. And it's a simple 8-bar opening, which is very regular, 4 plus 4. So at the beginning, it starts with an upbeat. So this is a very light B flat, and then the upbeat falling to the downbeat. So this light, like lifting the hand and the arm up for the B flat, and then falling down on the G. And then I'm thinking, and this is not a tutorial, it's just my own thoughts about the piece. And if you have any suggestions, or if I say something that you don't agree with, I'd love to know. But so we have the upbeat falling to the downbeat at the beginning of the first bar. And then in a sense, in my mind, the phrase is beginning on the next B flat. So we have something like, because generally speaking, phrases begin not on the first beat of the bar, or the first note, but the one after it, okay? And it just feels a bit more natural. It begins with this downward scale. And then it starts to climb up chromatically, where we have all of this. So it's obviously, as the music is going descending, it's free flowing. And that's the interesting thing about that segment at the opening, whereas at the stream or the river actually, It's flowing down the mountain, so it's quite rapid. There's a sense of freedom to it. But here, where we're starting to climb up, there's more resistance, basically. And it takes longer to get back up. So maybe I'll just play it from the start again. But all of this stuff here, these notes are definitely not equal, okay? And I know my playing at the moment might sound quite where everything is even and equal, but it's, in the final analysis, I want to bring out this E flat, E natural, F sharp, G, A flat, and then back to G. And we're going to the principal note, we go down and back up to it. Then the next principal note, down and back up to it. And the same for the next principal note, F, down and back up to it. And F sharp, down to the E sharp and back up to it, and so on. So now I'm going 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we're back to normal E flat major scale. And then the rest is fine. It's just normal scale fingering. So another part that was catching me out just after that, and again, it's so simple, and yet for some reason I was missing it the whole time, is when we come back up to the F, there's 2 leaps. Well, the first leap in particular, the F to the C. So because, I don't know, maybe I just need more practice, but I kept missing the C, or not all the time, but I never felt kind of 100% secure about it. So that's why when I'm practicing it now, I'm really being very deliberate and very conscious when I go for that C. And also because my little finger is so weak, even though I've done some work on it, you know, in the last year or so, I push in a little bit, or give some movement from the elbow from back here, just to make that a little bit, I don't want to accent it, but just to give it a little bit more help, okay? So playing it really slowly. So you can see my arm just slightly moves in, just like a fraction. And certainly I don't want to accent it, because really that C is the beginning of the next phrase. And then yada da. So we have this kind of and just on the phrasing as well, actually, to spell it out for myself, and so that I remember it, and that I really feel the phrasing. In the practice of it, I'm making small little gaps between one phrase and another, just like I did there. So that's the end of one phrase, and then that's that part, and then so there's, you know, I'm taking it in sections, just so I get it into my memory, or into my mind.
And also on that that particular area there, so far and throughout most of the A section, we're moving by step. You know, it's just like a scale. So for the first time here, we have a leap, which is significant. Okay, where we go. And then also coming down here, another leap. And actually that just reminds me there, a little bit of, I'm using a little bit of rotation, forearm rotation, just in certain spots to help as well. I want to try and avoid stiffness as much as possible, because certainly in the past, just from learning piano the wrong way, I got into the habit of playing with a lot of tension, and I'm trying my best to do everything to avoid tension these days. And those 8 bars, I know I'm spending a bit of time talking about them, but they're repeated so much in the A section that it's worth, you know, spending some time on them. So then it goes back up and it's all repeated higher. So let me see, I'll take it from maybe here. So you can see it's the same music, just repeated higher. And actually, I'm not even happy playing at that speed. I'd rather slow down more than that, because there's no point rushing through it. You have to take your time and really hear all of the notes. And also, by playing it slowly as I'm learning it, I can listen more actively to the left hand, which is very important, and not just focusing on the right hand. I'm a little bit shaky there in certain places, and that's purely because I changed the fingering. Okay, so when we finished that opening section there, Schubert moves from an E flat key to E flat minor. Okay, and I'll just play that little section. So even just that little bit there. So we come all the way back down and suddenly we're into E flat minor. So here we've got some arpeggios for the first time. Again, I hate to go on about it, but my 5th finger. If you notice in bar 26, 28, 30, 32, the second beat, there's a minim or a half note in the US. And this is held, obviously. And underneath it, we have this kind of bubbling sound, again, reference to water. And again, even just playing through it, or in the practice. I think it's a good idea to play around with music, and that's quite often suggested. And so even just there, I mean, it's a beautiful area. It's very melancholic and kind of wistful. It's not too sad, but you know, there's it is it is quite melancholic. I like to just even hold those long notes for longer, just to really hear them sing out. And then this is kind of insignificant or less significant. This, and then the next one, and then we have this less significant part, and then, and I can still hear the note there. And then we have this little part underneath. So this singing quality is very important in Schubert's music. His biggest contribution were his 600 plus lieder or songs. So he really was a song composer. And in all of his piano music, this really comes true. And so there you can really hear like that singing voice, the long held notes, and then to the B flat, and then to the A flat, and then finally to the G flat. And mentioning Andras Schiff again, because I'll mention him a lot, I think. He talks about, he chooses a Bosendorf for piano for its singing quality, as opposed to a Steinway or any other piano. So again, to try and, for these more longer sustained notes. So I actually saw Andras Schiff play in Dublin several years ago, and he even brought over his own piano, a Bluthner piano from Berlin. And he was playing with the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment. And that was a great concert, and it was a privilege to see him. So what we have here is actually a circle of fifths. We're going. So we're going from starting with E minor, then to the A flat minor, then to a D flat, and then to G flat, and then to the C flat minor seventh, to a half diminished chord here, and then to a B flat seventh, and then finally back to E minor, or E flat minor, sorry. So the reason I'm pulling out some of these things is because to me it's quite amazing, and I studied music composition. The harmony and the structure and everything is so simple, and it's been used so many times in so many pieces, and yet, you know, it's a unique piece, and it's uniquely beautiful, you know, and it's uniquely Schubert. So like that sequence there through the circle of fifths, it's so common, you know, and yet sounds so beautiful in the hands of Schubert. So then as the music starts to rise, I'll just play the next few bars, and then we can come back and talk about them. back into the opening section again. So really just there, and I'm purely going to just talk about fingering mainly. There's one point as we climb up to the high G flat, we're back to E minor just here. So this, and again, I'm only pointing it out because I'm paranoid about my fifth finger. We reached the E flat fine with the third finger, but then pushing in on the G flat with the fifth, and it's on a black key as well, which makes it a little bit worrying. That's fine, and then the G flat with the fifth. Then we're back down to a G flat major chord, which is fine, nice and comfortable. And here we have a Neopolitan chord, which is a flat second. And there's the accent on the C flat and also on the E double flat, resolving there to D flat. So again, this long held note. So that's the Neopolitan, and yeah, I'll just keep going from there. That area there is tricky as well. I've actually seen some pretty big performer actually just letting go of those notes, not holding on to this. I'm taking a little gap there, sorry, just to underline those high, long-held notes. But I hold them, even though it is a little bit awkward. Maybe I could let them go, but I don't know. I just, when I hold the note physically, you know, it's more significant. And then we have the chromatic run and back up. And then here I've changed the fingering as well. I was doing something that you probably think is very weird. I was going 3, 4, 5, very weak fingers there. And I've just changed that now to 2, 3, 4. Okay, which makes sense, more sense. It feels a lot more, it's a diminished chord, diminished seventh, feels a lot more stable. I mean, I don't know why I didn't think of these things earlier. I seem to have been making life difficult for myself unnecessarily. So. And then there's a fermata on that last B flat before we go back. Incidentally, you can see here that I'm shuffling these photocopied papers. I have the score here in front of me, but I always like to print out the music so that I can scribble different things, especially harmony, you know, in different colored marker or pens. So I'm kind of working from both. So then the same music is repeated again, and that breaks then into a final descent to the highest note, and then a final interruption again of E flat minor before the section concludes in the relative major, G flat, which enharmonically is F sharp major, which is the dominant of B minor, which the B section is in. So I'll just play through that to the end, first of all. To that, the B section, which is the dramatic, very serious, kind of sounds martial, but maybe a funeral march as opposed to something militaristic. You notice there that I made some mistakes on the way up because, again, I just changed the fingering. On this passage, I was using a lot of fourth finger, which was weak. And I've changed that now. So if I go from, say, bar 62, just there was one fourth finger that I have to use. Sorry. So I'm still learning that, or just getting used to that new fingering there. I could play it faster even with the bad fingering, but I just need more time to get used to the change of fingering there. And also it's quite intense as we're reaching up to the final, that very high F. And then, as I said, the music is interrupted. Just when we think we're in E flat major, the music is interrupted again with this E flat minor. And there's accents on each, or sforzando on each of those. So yeah, it's kind of maybe preemptive of the coda and how that ends with such force. There's our G flat major chord, which is F sharp major enharmonically, and then into B minor, and the beginning of the B section, which I'll look at in the next video. So one of the final things just that I'd like to talk about are the dynamics in the piece. You probably know if you play piano that in order to play fast, you have to play light, and it's usually it's not going to be as loud. And maybe it's the left hand, for instance, that might help to give volume to if needed, to a forte section. And at the beginning of this piece, it starts light, but when it's repeated, when the 8 bars are repeated, it's then forte. And I guess if the speed is slow enough or not so fast, then you can just actually put more pressure, into the keys to make it louder. But I was also thinking, because for most of this, I try to use as little pedal as possible to keep it as clean and clear, all of these little notes. So I had thought, well, maybe if I fill out the repeated sections that are forte by adding a little bit more pedal to build up more sound and just make it a little bit louder. I'm afraid almost to record this because, well, I don't know a hell of a lot about recording, and just to get the sound as it is now on the video is, you know, a slightly tricky task. And I noticed when I recorded with a lot of pedal that I was picking up maybe more distortion. So I'm not sure how this is going to sound, but I'll play just the opening again. And when we go to the forte section or the forte repeat, I'll add more pedal and we'll see what happens. So I wanted the clarity in the notes without the pedal as much as possible because, again, going right back to the beginning of the video and the reference of water, even if you saw the streams and the river that I was beside, some of the smaller streams, the lighter streams, the small streams, the water is, is trickling. So you can almost see every little rivulet as opposed to the gushing waterfalls. And so I see this opening as that more delicate, very clean and precise kind of note playing, rather than using the pedal, and which has this wash of sound, which is more like a waterfall or something that's heavier or too heavy. So that's just a little analogy anyway, and again, taken from my walk in the woods earlier. So that's as much as I'm going to cover today on this piece. In the next video, I'll look at the B section and the coda and discuss and try to put it all together, basically, and how all those parts relate. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. I know it's been a long video, so I appreciate if you watched it to the end, and if you have any thoughts yourself about this piece, if you've played it, or if you have anything to add, I'd be very interested to know. So see you in the next video. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.